All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's PAVE Candidate Forum for the District Attorney's Race. My name is Deborah Waterman, and I will be serving as your moderator this evening. Tonight's forum is brought to you by the Pottawatomie County Advocates for Voter Education, also known as PAVE, and is a nonpartisan organization that has been serving and educating voters in our community for over 20 years through volunteer work of dedicated local citizens. Our mission is to promote voter engagement and education by providing opportunities for the public to hear directly from the candidates, learn about important issues, and encourage active participation in the election process. Forums like the one being held tonight, along with other community events, are part of that ongoing effort to help make voters informed decisions and to get out to vote. We want to remind everyone that May 22nd is the deadline to register to vote ahead of the upcoming primary election on June 16th. If you are not yet registered to vote, have recently moved, or need to update your voter information, please make plans to do so before the deadline. In addition to the primary races, voters will also see State Question 832 on the ballot. Because state questions appear on all ballots regardless of party affiliation, every registered voter has a reason to participate in this election. We encourage everyone to get informed, make a plan, and get out to vote on June 16th. PAVE is also always open to adding to its volunteer team. If anyone is interested in helping support voter education efforts in our community, please speak with one of the identified volunteers following tonight's forum. Before we begin tonight's forum, if you are able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Tonight, we are joined by the candidates for District Attorney, incumbent Anna Panter and Daniel McClure. I will now go over the procedures for tonight's programs. She's handing out the straw to decide who gets to go first. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening introduction. After introductions, we will move into the question portion of the forum. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to respond to each question. Candidates will be able to track their time by keeping an eye on our signal system, which will light up yellow when they have 30 seconds remaining. The red light indicates the candidate is out of time, and we respectfully request that they conclude their remarks at that time. This helps ensure adequate time for additional questions to be asked throughout the evening. All audience-submitted questions are screened for duplicate topics and appropriate content. However, we make every effort to preserve the original wording and intent of each submitted question as much as possible. Each candidate will be asked the same questions, and the order of response will alternate with each new question to ensure fairness throughout the forum. At the end of the forum, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. As a reminder, this is a forum, not a debate. The purpose is to give voters an opportunity to hear directly from the candidates about their experience, priorities, and approach to the office. Candidates should use their time to explain their own positions and qualifications rather than personally attacking another candidate. We appreciate both candidates for being here and for their willingness to speak directly with the voters. Do we know who's going first?
I think I drew the short straw.
Did you win? Did you win?
I think, is
that the short straw?
Yeah, I think he's got those.
He's got the short. Okay, we're going to begin with Mr. Panter tonight. And again, these questions will be to both of you, and if you need me to repeat a question at any point in time, just let me know. We'll start with Mr. Panter.
Oh, we're doing the openings first?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. I'm
I
new
mean,
to
we
this.
can
you
skip
tell?
that if you want.
You want to skip that? Well, you can just pass that on. Say, hi, I'm Adam. Moving on. But please start.
It's been an honor to spend the past 3.5 years serving this district as district attorney. I'm hoping I've done David, my friend, proud, and I want to thank PAVE and Ms. Waterman here for putting on this service for us. I think it's important that we're able to come in and speak with you with our own voices and not written down on a piece of paper. But I am a career prosecutor. I have spent nearly 2 decades in the courtroom, most of that serving this district as a prosecutor. I came here right out of law school in 2008 and began my career as an assistant district attorney serving this community. I raised my family here, and over time I became one of the most successful and experienced prosecutors in the state of Oklahoma. I have tried hundreds of jury trials successfully. I've only lost 2 in my nearly 18-year career. During that time, I rose up to first assistant district attorney. I led this office from the front lines during that time in the courtroom fighting. Spent another 4 years in the Oklahoma County DA's office as a team leader. While I was there, prosecuted mainly homicides and major crimes. During that same time, I was appointed as a special assistant United States attorney for the Western District of Oklahoma, where I helped prosecute domestic violence-related gun crimes. After successfully prosecuting thousands of cases in Oklahoma County and this district, and putting hundreds of murderers and rapists in prison, I agreed to come back. I agree with David Hammer. He reached out, asked me to come back and help him turn this office around. The office was in a nightmare condition, and I agreed to come. Governor Stitt appointed me. I came. I was committed to righting this ship, and at this point, we've built the best DA's office in the state. We've gone from the worst to the best. And on June 16th, I'm going to ask you for your vote so that I can remain in office and continue doing what we have started. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Daniel?
Yeah, thank you so much. My name is Daniel McClure. I'm obviously running for district attorney. Thank you again for putting this on. This is a great event. I'm currently serving as the mayor of McLeod, and I'm blessed to have been doing that. I'll tell you a little bit myself. I am really proud of the work we've done in McLeod, and my priorities in the DA's office, first and foremost, is justice for victims and safe communities. I think that's the vital focal point that we have to have when making decisions in the DA's office. Second, it's really important to me is transparency. I think that not just in our community, but really across the country, we have a great distrust of government. And I think the only way we fix that is by having a transparent government. And as I've been speaking to voters across our district, a common theme that I've been seeing is we don't know what's going on with our cases. We want to know what's happening next. And I want to help comfort those victims and those families by having a completely transparent system and being honest and upfront all the time. The third priority that I have is I really want to focus on accountability for political corruption. Where I serve as mayor, we've had a number of political corruption issues, and to date, we've had no accountability for those issues. In spite of turning those issues in, trying to work through and find a resolution for those, that saddens my heart. My community is out taxpayer dollars just under $100,000 for political corruption-related issues, and that's not okay to me. And as I've been campaigning, I've been getting calls from all across the district. I got a call this morning from a mayor that said, here's all the corruption issues I have. I'm really excited to hear that you're running on that issue, and it's important to people. So look forward to sharing more with you about the campaign and what I have to offer, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you very much. All right, and with that, we will begin with the questions. And again, we will start with Adam. We're going to jump right in. All right. Recently, former cop Shawnee cop Gary Moore was fired for selling cocaine. What are your feelings on prosecuting people in positions of trust who violate the law?
I hold people that are in positions of trust who violate the law to a higher standard. They're in positions of trust. Whenever we have persons out there in the field and we give them this trust in not just my office, but the public gives the police officers trust, we have to be able to believe that they're doing the right things with the power in the positions that they hold. As it was with Officer Moore, my office was actually the one who led the undercover investigation to be able to nab Officer Moore. My undercover officers from my task force spent a couple months doing undercover buys from him in a bar until we were able to develop a solid enough case that led to a search warrant and led to his arrest. And currently, we're awaiting sentencing on his case, where we will be asking the judge to give him prison time on the case. So I believe it is very important to hold those persons accountable. It's paramount to our system that whenever we have persons in positions of trust and authority over us, that those persons are willing to come in and do the job and do a job honestly and ethically, and that's or else our whole system falls apart. And to not hold them accountable it leads to chaos.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. I'm glad that individual officer is going to be facing justice. I represent a number of cities across the state, and we've come across that issue a number of times where police officers or public officials are engaged in inappropriate and unlawful conduct. Every single time I've experienced that issue, we are prompt, we're honest, we're transparent, we tell everyone what we're doing, and we hold them accountable. Our system breaks down when we don't do that, and I think there's too much of that in our community, our society, and absolutely, tough on crime, and they need to be held to the highest standard and every single time.
Thank you. All right. Along the similar lines, if someone you personally knew or considered a friend was found to have committed a crime, would you be able to set aside that friendship in order to carry out the job voters elected you to do fairly and impartially? Daniel?
So the ethics rules have processes for that. I don't think we're talking about that. But generally, yes, absolutely. It doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter how important you are, how powerful you are, if you're close to the seat of power or not, you have to be held to the same standards that everyone else have to follow. It shouldn't matter who you know, it matters what the law is, and we should apply the law and protect the community every single time. So absolutely, every single time.
Okay. Adam?
Agree. I have prosecuted judges, I've prosecuted police officers, I've prosecuted business owners, community leaders. I've prosecuted them all, people I know, people I've respected at one point, and I've done it because that's what the law requires of me to do. Whenever you do this job, you have to do it with neutrality, but a passion, but it has to be a neutral passion. You have to be able to seek justice and take away the face that's on the other side of the aisle. It's really important, very important that, let me take a step back. The purpose, our role as a prosecutor is to seek justice. So whenever you're seeking justice, we're not just wanting to punish somebody in a certain way or this person the other way. What we're wanting to is seek accountability for that person's actions based on those actions. And I don't care about a person's job. I don't care about their last name. I don't care about their socioeconomic status. Nothing. I treat everybody the same based on the crime they committed and the best way to get justice for either that victim or on behalf of the community for that offense.
Thank you. Okay. Daniel? Did you need me to?
Yeah, if you would one
reread?
more time.
If someone you personally knew or considered a friend,
Oh, yeah, I already answered that one. Okay.
Oh, you did?
I thought there was a different one. Yeah,
that
I've
was,
already answered
okay,
that one. Yeah.
we're good. All right. And I'm sorry, I shouldn't,
It's okay.
I got confused there. I'm trying to keep track here. All right. This will be for Adam to start. What conflicts of interest do you currently have, if any, with any Pot County elected or non-elected officials, including in the town of Pot County, anywhere in the town of Pot County?
So conflict of what?
Do you currently have with any Pot County elected or non-elected officials?
I don't believe I have any conflicts with them, but DA's offices by law are required to provide legal representation to all county elected officials. So naturally, if something comes up with an elected official, that's something we have to take a step back and see if our civil representation of that official will conflict with any type of criminal action, if any. But to basically give the answer nobody likes to hear, it depends on the circumstances. But generally, if it doesn't conflict with whatever we are advising an elected official of civilly, then it shouldn't affect what we do criminally.
Okay.
So I guess my answer is no, I don't believe I have any conflicts.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I don't think I have any conflict. I presume there being conflicts of interest, as I think what they're meaning there. I don't have any conflicts of interest. I guess I just generally don't have any conflict either way, I guess. I just try to do the right thing all the time, but no, I don't have any conflicts of interest or conflicts generally that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. The prior administration consisted of defense attorneys who were not good at giving proper and just punishments. What are your views on being able to switch the defense attorney mindset to continue to hold offenders accountable with prison sentences and not compliance dockets? That'll be you, Daniel.
Yeah, I think first you need to look at the worldview and what our goal is. Our goal is to seek justice and, like I said earlier, to protect the community. So absolutely, first and foremost, we have to administer justice to protect the community. And if the person engaged in conflict, engaged in unlawful conduct, is a danger to the community, they need to go to prison. We need to protect the prison every single time. I have engaged in a lot of defense work. I've only, I think, had a handful of cases on that side of things, so I have no problems with that. I've served as a prosecutor, and I think we should uphold the law and administer justice.
Okay. Thank you. Adam?
I think the problem of the prior administration wasn't so much an inability to understand the law, it was an inability to prosecute. They knew criminal law, they practiced criminal law on the defense side, and they walked into an office and none of them had any criminal prosecution experience. And what happened is they turned one of the best DA's offices in the state into the absolute worst within a period of months. Hundreds of thousands of dollars missing from budgets, victims getting zero justice, murderers and rapists literally walking free on their streets. The moment I walked into that office, that changed. The moment we walked into that office, that changed. I brought in experienced prosecutors who knew what they were doing. We know how to handle cases. We know how to put bad people in prison. We also know how to recognize those people that need help for their mental health issues or their substance abuse issues. I'm a huge proponent of mental health court and of drug courts and those alternative courts for the people that we can help get the treatment and stuff they need to recognize that they can be a productive member of society at some point if they receive that proper help. But at the same time, be able to recognize those people out there that are just going to continue to be leeches on society or hurt people or steal, lie, cheat, you name it, to other people. We have to be able to recognize those, separate them out, and be able to prosecute, have the capability to prosecute and send them to prison.
Thank you. Well, and following in that vein, we will start with you, Adam, with this next question. What prosecution experience do you have?
Well, I think I went over a lot of it in my opening statement, but I've done this for nearly 2 decades now. I have prosecuted everything that a DA's office can prosecute. I have specialized at points with child abuse homicides, complex homicides, death penalty cases, you name it. I've had experience in the federal system as a special assistant United States attorney. I have probably more jury trial experience than any other district attorney out there. And that's not to speak ill of anybody else, but that's just the reality. I have spent my career in a courtroom putting on evidence and holding people accountable.
Thank you. Adam?
Thank you. So I have served as an assistant district attorney for a short time. I've served as a municipal prosecutor as well. I also bring to the table a broader array of experiences. I've represented local governments, county governments, fire governments, a lot of those governmental affair work that will impact county representation that Adam mentioned earlier. I've also represented children and family in deprived cases. And so I think I'm bringing something a little different to the table. It's a broader brush of experience and a different way of looking at things. And I think that equips me well for the job.
Thank you. All right, we're going to start with you, Daniel, on this next one. It appears that some cases in Polk County involving fentanyl have gone without charges or prosecution. And as the DA, how do you plan to approach cases like these?
So I've heard anecdotally some of these things as well. Fentanyl is a terrible, atrocious thing. It's a plague on our community. If you're selling fentanyl in our community and you're trafficking drugs in our community, I'm going to send you to prison for the maximum amount of time. That substance kills families, breaks the bond of families and parents and children. It kills people on a regular basis. So I'm not going to let that slide, and there's going to be max punishments on that. Fentanyl is dangerous, and we have to get it out of our community.
Thank you. Do you need me to repeat the question?
Fentanyl and lack of prosecution?
Yes, basically.
So I would tend to, so one of my first priorities of coming into office, because I knew the scourge fentanyl has. I know people personally in this community, friends of mine who have lost children due to fentanyl overdose. And sometimes it's due to fake pills or something that it's a one-time occurrence. It's an awful thing. So one of my first priorities was establishing my drug task force. And one of their top priorities is eliminating the scourge of fentanyl and methamphetamine in this community. And we have targeted fentanyl to the point where we have put dozens of dealers in prison for life. We show no mercy to a fentanyl dealer. We have tracked down dealers in Oklahoma City. We have tracked down cartels in Texas. We are shutting those things down. At this point, the word on the street is that you cannot find a fentanyl dealer in the city of Shawnee or in Pottawatomie County because they know that if they get caught, they will go to prison for life. Dealers are scuttling back to Oklahoma City because they are afraid of what we are doing. They see us around every corner, and I intend to keep it that way. Fentanyl overdose deaths have dropped exponentially since I made it in office. Every day we get less and less and less. We see fentanyl fewer and fewer and fewer times. And I hope to get to the point where we don't see a single possession of fentanyl case in this district at all.
Thank you. right, we'll start with you again, Adam. What are your feelings on DUI and alcohol offenses, and should anyone receive special treatment or dispensation in the prosecutions of?
So, people who drink and drive need to be held accountable. Absolutely. It's a very selfish crime. It's something that can lead to tragic consequences. I have put on enough jury trials for DUI manslaughters and DUI murders that I've talked to, I don't know how many families of victims, going through the court process, explaining it to the loved ones of the consequences and how we're going to try to achieve justice for them and for their loved ones. So every time we get a DUI case, we treat it absolutely seriously. It's something that we look at all the factors involved. We look at somebody's history. We look at whether somebody has addiction problems. We look at the totality of the picture, and we try to determine, okay, is this, again, somebody that we need to be harsher on? Is this somebody that we need to make sure they get into drug court and they can get clean? So it's handled on a case-by-case basis, but it's absolutely something that we take seriously in this district.
Daniel?
Yeah, can you read the last part? I think there's a caveat at the
Yeah,
bottom.
should anyone receive special treatment or dispensation in the prosecution of a DUI?
Okay, yeah, I thought that's what the question was. So, absolutely not. There's no special treatment. I think it goes to one of the first questions. It doesn't matter who you are, who you know. Everyone gets treated fairly, and we're seeking justice to protect our community. So, I agree with what Mr. Painter said there. Some people need programs. Some people are repeat offenders, and they're a danger to our society, and they should go to jail. But to answer the question directly, no, everyone is going to be treated the same. And our pursuit of justice will be the same no matter who you are.
Thank you. All right. Daniel, let's start with you. Do you believe it is the responsibility of the District Attorney's Office to review all available evidence, including information provided by the defense that may support dismissal prior to moving a case forward into court?
Well, I mean, I think initially when you file the case, you're not going to have everything from every piece of evidence. You're going to charge a case based off of having sufficient evidence to charge the offense. But of course, I'm open to looking at all of the evidence that's available. The last thing that we want to do is convict someone who is innocent of a crime. So certainly, we'll look at all the evidence, weigh it, and give it its appropriate weight, and make the appropriate decision in that pursuit of justice.
Adam?
I agree. It'd be absolute malpractice for a prosecutor to not look at all pieces of evidence that are available to them. In fact, the law requires that we do that. And I will tell you, as in my 20-year career prosecuting, anytime somebody has come forward and a defense attorney, whether it's another witness or you name it, they come forward and they offer up a legitimate piece of evidence or a reason or something that raises in our mind there's a possibility somebody's innocent. You press the brakes immediately, full stop, you investigate it, and you make sure, because the last thing any prosecutor ever wants to do is put an innocent person in jail or punish an innocent person, period. Because not only are we taking away somebody's constitutional rights in those cases, you're also leaving potentially another suspect out there to hurt other people. So absolutely, if somebody comes forward with that, we look at it, to do otherwise would be malpractice.
Okay. Adam, we'll start with you on this one. When citizens submit complaints involving public infrastructure projects, grant funding, utilities, land development, or municipal decision-making, what standards should the public expect your office to apply before determining whether a matter warrants criminal investigation, ethics review, recusal, referral to another agency, or no action at all?
Well, and I think this raises an excellent point when it comes to why experience is important, because whenever you get information like that comes in, you don't automatically just make decisions based on what's in front of you. You have to review it, but then you also have to talk to the appropriate law enforcement agencies, because things like that need a proper criminal investigation. Because if they're not properly criminally investigated, you could end up with charges on somebody, and with a stroke of a pen, the district attorney can change somebody's life for the worse. Even if it's something that gets dismissed down the line, it changes their life, because that's going to follow them for the rest of their life. So you have to be sure whenever you file that charge that you know that that is something that is worthy of a criminal charge if so there's some sort of violation. So whenever we get that, almost everything is always looked at in the vein of, is there something criminal here? And if so, we refer it to the proper law enforcement agency to do a proper investigation, and then once they do the criminal investigation, we review it with them, and then we make the determination if charges are appropriate.
read that one more time for me.
Okay. When citizens submit complaints involving public infrastructure projects, grant funding, utilities, land development, or municipal decision-making, what standards should the public expect your office to apply before determining whether a matter warrants criminal investigation, ethics review, recusal, referral to another agency, or no action at all?
I mean, you just have to review the facts. I largely agree with Adam there. It depends on the facts. The facts matter in our world. So you could have something as simple as an open meetings violation. I'm not going to send that off for 3 years of investigation. That was pretty straightforward. We have the minutes. If it's something more complex, of course, we work with our law enforcement partners to get the information correctly. But I think from a broader perspective, that goes to how we're addressing issues in the community, those corruption issues that we have that I think are prevalent and a lot of times not being addressed fully. I think that leads our communities to have trust issues, and they see it, and I understand at times they're not as big as a murder case, and sometimes maybe they don't get charged as quickly as some would like, but for me, that's a priority. It's a priority because it's a trust issue, it's an accountability issue, and we have to get to the bottom of that because we have to fix government, because government without ethics is not government at all.
Thank you. Okay. Adam, or Daniel, we will start with you on this next, and then we're going to get into a series of similar questions. Child abuse cases are often difficult to prosecute due to delayed disclosure, trauma responses, or limited physical evidence. How would you ensure these cases are still taken seriously and thoroughly pursued?
First on that one, right?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. We have a number of these cases that I've worked in on our DHS cases. They're called juvenile deprived cases, but everyone else in the community calls them DHS cases. You have to work with your investigating partners on that. We have great forensic interviewers in the community, and they do a great job working with those children. And sometimes it does take time for the children to process their trauma and to work through it to where they're comfortable enough to communicate that with someone. And so, top priority of mine, protecting children is so important. And so we have to be thorough, we have to be diligent, and we have to work through that evidence as it comes.
Okay, thank you. Adam, do you need me to reread it?
Yes, if you don't mind.
Child abuse cases are often difficult to prosecute due to delayed disclosure, trauma responses, or limited physical evidence. How would you ensure these cases are still taken seriously and thoroughly pursued?
Well, as an experienced child abuse prosecutor, there's a multi-step way you have to handle this problem. First off, you have to have people that can identify ways to get admissible evidence to be able to prove a case. So it all boils down to whether we have enough evidence to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt. And in some of those cases, it's very difficult to prove due to the reasons you've explained. So that's why it is important that we do what's called a multidisciplinary team approach. Those are the protocols we have in place right now. As the district attorney, I'm the head of the multidisciplinary team in this district. And what we are is a group of law enforcement, prosecutors, advocates in the community, mental health providers, child welfare, you name it. All these groups are together. We review these cases and we discuss them and we look at what can we do to get justice for this child, or how can we help this person out? How can we build a case that's going to be stronger? And then you have to have a prosecutor that is capable of taking that information that you can gain from a child and being able to present it in a manner that's effective in court, in a manner that can, convince 12 people beyond a reasonable doubt that this happened to the child. And it's not always an easy thing. For example, my main child abuse prosecutor, she teaches at forensic interviewing school. So she actually teaches other forensic interviewers how to speak with children to be able to learn and elicit evidence or locate evidence from children who are talking to them. And you also have to be familiar with anatomy even. There's so many scientific, you break it down to so many scientific levels sometimes on how just because you don't see a visible injury doesn't mean there's not an injury. So that's where a lot of the expertise comes into play, and that's why it's really important to have all those other agencies looking at it together and doing the collaborative effort.
Thank you. This will be a follow-up question. We'll start with you, Adam. What specific steps would you take to reduce additional trauma to child victims during the investigation and prosecution process?
Okay, great question. So we have what are called child hearsay laws. In fact, my office and my child abuse prosecutor, we were part of the state We authored and helped get passed legislation the other year to increase the age from 13 to 16 years old that would allow child hearsay into courtroom proceedings. And the reason for that is we want to lessen the amount of trauma, lessen the amount of times a child has to repeat the testimony or the story they've given. And to do that, we also have to be able to utilize effective child advocacy centers doing forensic interviews. We have to be able to properly question those witnesses to elicit the evidence that they provided. We also have to be familiar with other type of hearsay laws and exceptions that allow us to get in the evidence that's been elicited from that child through a different source to lessen the amount of times or lessen the impact that child would have to testify. The goal ultimately is that child would have to testify once at trial if we get to that point. And we think we keep it at a minimum, we lessen that trauma, and the better that child is in the long run.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I largely agree with that. The less number of times we have children on the stand protects them, and re-traumatizing them is terrible. So I largely agree to the hearsay exception requirements, and put them on the stand as least as possible is the best we could do.
Okay, thank you. This is a little bit long. We may need to break it up a little bit. We'll start with you, Daniel. The Court of Criminal Appeals in the State versus Green case, where the court held that unborn children can be victims of child neglect. If you were elected prosecutor, would you hold those who harm unborn children criminally responsible? Such as, would you prosecute women who use methamphetamine, fentanyl, and other illegal drugs that end up harming their unborn children? If such child dies after being exposed to the drugs while in utero, should that be prosecuted? And what would be a just outcome for that case?
Yes, prosecute them for that. I'm a huge believer that birth begins at conception, so all the instances you described, obviously, unacceptable and would charge for that. The last part, I didn't hear the last part of the question.
What would be an outcome for that case? I guess if you did prosecute, what would be a just outcome to that?
Substantial jail time, prison time rather. The idea, and we've seen that in a number of cases recently, where you have someone who keeps having children and they keep having babies that they're harming. That's not okay. And if they're in prison, we can prevent them from keep reproducing and keep harming additional children in the womb by keep using harmful drugs and keep having babies. So, absolutely.
Thank you, Daniel. Evan?
I'm one of the few DAs in the state that we have a policy we aggressively prosecute anybody that uses drugs while their child is in utero. I am a lifelong Christian. I believe strongly in protecting infants and babies, and I agree with Mr. McClure. I believe life begins at conception. So whenever I see a parent or a mother come in and they're consistently using drugs while pregnant with a child, that tells me all I need to know about that person is that they don't care about their baby, they care about themselves. I have cases right now. We've charged multiple women with doing that. We've charged their spouses or partners for providing those drugs. We've sent people to prison. In fact, there's a case right now where we have a mother who had one baby that had drugs in its system, then had another baby who died because of drug overdose while in utero, had amount of methamphetamine in that fetus that could kill an adult. And I've caught a lot of criticism from some in the community for prosecuting that case hard, but I believe that we need to treat it harshly, or else it doesn't stop. We keep seeing it. If there are not consequences to somebody's criminal actions like that, it doesn't end. So it's something I take very seriously, and it's something that I have a track record of doing.
Thank you. Okay, and we're going to start with you on this next one. How would you, if elected district attorney, address the current handling of juvenile sex offenders, particularly regarding gaps in supervision and long delays before court-mandated outpatient treatment begins? Would you support changes to the current protocol, and if so, what changes would you advocate for?
Okay, so I just want to be clear.
Sure.
How would I change juvenile sex offense laws to quicken the process?
Essentially, the current handling sees that there's gaps in supervision and long delays before the court-mandated treatment begins.
Okay.
So
our juvenile delinquent system is vastly different from the criminal system. The criminal system is about punishment. Juvenile system is entirely about rehabilitation. The goal is for a juvenile that comes in and has offenses charged against them, are they somebody that we can rehabilitate? And there's a lot of services out there that we send those juveniles to, a lot of experts that specialize in treatment of that. Now, obviously, you have to be able to identify ones that are not able to be rehabilitated. But the reality is, because they're kids, we have a lot of rules in place to ensure that those children are not just kept away from others so other children may be safe around them, but they're also safe themselves and receiving the help that they need. The law requires that those children be given the help that they need. Now, I'm not really familiar. My experience with the system is there's not many gaps involved in the supervision. As soon as an offense comes in, it's reviewed by law enforcement, it's brought to our office, we file a petition, they immediately get supervised by the Office of Juvenile Affairs, and if it's something that requires them to go in some type of lockup facility, that's where they go. If it's something that requires them to immediately go to a treatment facility, that's where they go. We look at what the best option is for that kid based on their needs at the time. So,
Thank you.
I think generally the question's about the expediency of the case, as I took the question. Of course, we need to work expeditiously to get those juvenile children evaluated and into the appropriate place. That might mean detention. If they're repeat offenders and a danger to the community, that may mean services and programs to deter their behavior, correct it, and prevent future victims. But John, I think the question is about the timeline. I think we move quickly. I agree with that. And I think the cases I've seen seem to be working pretty quickly. I'm in there when a lot of those cases go through, and that's really important. But I think identifying, I know that question may be timed at some of the other counties. There's a lot of juvenile sex case issues all over the news right now, and you have to seek justice for those victims, and you have to get the proper evaluations done.
I'm down to about 2 more questions. Is anybody else in the audience going to be wanting to submit anything? Now would be about the time to do it.
She has a whole stack, it looks like, there.
She's got a whole, we could go here for a while, but I want to respect everybody's time.
We had tons of
She
email
was just-
questions.
That's great.
What all these are.
Awesome. Okay, well, we will continue on. And we will start with, let's see, let me look at what we've got. I'm going to go ahead and ask this one that I was working on here a little bit. Daniel, we'll start with you. If elected DA, what steps would you take to address the ongoing issue of pedophiles being allowed to roam free in the community, such as holding jobs around children? What would you do to ensure our children in schools, parks, churches, and shopping are all protected in our community?
Yeah, pedophiles are just the scum of the earth. Let's just call it what it is. Children are so vulnerable and special and a blessing from God, and we have to protect them. So, number one, maximum incarceration every time. We need to address the bond process. I think the question may be going to that a little bit as well. There's a number of those individuals in the community that get very low bond amounts, and they're right back on the street with the opportunity to reoffend. I've seen cases in our community where those individuals may get probation and are back on the streets, and it depends on the offender. I understand the circumstance, but we have to do everything we can to keep them off the streets and keep them from being predators on our children. That's just a top priority.
Okay, thank you. Do you need me to repeat it?
No, I think
Okay.
I get it. I agree with Daniel there. One of the main issues is bond. The district attorneys do not get to choose what the bond amount is in a case. That's up to the court. I've been critical of judges, vocally even, with judges for setting very low bond amounts. One of the things we fight in court all the time is trying to increase bonds, largely unsuccessfully. But we still make the effort, because I feel like that if we don't try, even if we know it's going to be unsuccessful, then we're not doing our jobs. But we're probably one of the most aggressive child predator prosecution teams in the state. We've put people in prison over and over and over. We have a track record for it. Now, obviously, every case has its different facts and different issues, but we also have a policy. We do not do anything ever in my office without the victim's input. And we follow their advice on these cases, because I believe it is extremely important to include them in any type of plea agreement process. But the walking the street and the being in the parks, that raises a good question. Shawnee PD, I'll actually give them a shout out. They have an excellent sex offender registry program. They are very aggressive. They communicate with us frequently, and they're going out, and if sex offenders are a day late or they're in the wrong spot, they are arresting them, bringing them to us, and we're sending them to prison. And we want that. We want to stay on top of them because we don't want them going to our parks or places. In fact, me and my first assistant, Ms. McConnell, got legislation into the, I think it's maybe have passed the House and the Senate by now, to increase zone of safety laws. Basically, right now, it is not illegal for a sex offender to go hang out at a water park where a bunch of children are swimming. It's not illegal for them to go hang out by themselves at a roller skating rink, unsupervised around a bunch of children. We're trying to spread those laws to try to include any place where children gather for any type of entertainment purposes, to include a prohibition against sex offenders being, loitering, residing near, or being at, period, those places. So we're being proactive with our efforts to try to eliminate sex offenders being able to freely roam our streets and have too easy access to children.
Thank you. All right, we're going to swing back around to some family court issues here again. And this will be for Adam. How do you balance protecting children from genuine abuse while also safeguarding families from wrongful accusations that may permanently damage relationships, reputations, or parental rights?
Absolutely. That again falls back when I spoke about the MDT earlier. So all the professionals in that room, including prosecutors in my office, we're all trained to be able to identify times whenever a child may be coached or evidence may be manufactured. That's one of the first things we look at in cases. But also the reality is false reporting by children is very rare. False reporting by children is a very low percentage. And that doesn't mean we blindly follow, but what we're doing is we have experts in investigation in the other fields, and we're able to look for other evidence. And that other evidence, what we're looking for would be to corroborate what the child is saying. And if you find evidence to corroborate what a child is saying, that tends to tell you that what they're saying is the truth. Because one of the sayings we have in prosecution is that people lie, physical evidence or scientific evidence doesn't. So those are the little things we try to look at to ensure that we are not charging somebody wrongfully, or we're not removing somebody's child wrongfully. That is a very important thing that we look at as a team to ensure that that doesn't happen, because the last thing we ever want to do is violate somebody's constitutional rights by taking away a child unjustly.
Thank you.
So I agree to the extent that we have to protect children. We have to look at the evidence, apply the evidence, and get the children out of those houses that are a danger to them. I think the second part of the question, though, is really important about how do we protect from children being taken from homes unjustly. And just to be super blunt with you all, I've been really discouraged in a number of cases that I've seen where I see witnesses lie on the stand. I see DHS workers say things as truth and fact, and either it's a bold-faced lie or they did a really poor job investigating it and put inaccurate information into the record. So to your second part of that question was, how do you prevent against that? You have to hold DHS accountable, and respectfully, I don't see a lot of that. And I saw about a month ago, we had someone lie on the stand. That's not okay. And if we start holding those people who lie on the stand accountable and we charge them for lying on the stand, they will stop lying on the stand. And I'm just really passionate about that. We have to protect kids, and they're our first and foremost priority. But ripping children out of homes and re-traumatizing them because we have lying witnesses and lying DHS folks, that's not okay. And I'll provide a caveat here before someone sends me a message. We have some great DHS workers. We have some really top-notch folks in our community, and we have some that really probably should go to prison. And I think that's going to be a priority of mine, is to hold those individuals accountable to tell the truth 100% of the time.
Thank you. Okay, now follow-up question, and we'll start with you, Daniel. What standards of integrity and evidentiary review would guide your office in ensuring accusations are thoroughly investigated before prosecution, particularly in cases where conflicting family dynamics may exist?
Oh man, that's a great question. You have so many cases where one side says this happened, one side says another happens. We have to take children at their word, but we have to work the process and weigh the evidence. And that's where our experts come into play, and they can help through that process. But evaluating that evidence is really, really important. because the last thing we want to do is take a child from a house unnecessarily. But I think just you have to weigh the evidence, you have to be ethical and apply those ethical standards.
Thank you. Adam?
Well, the law requires us to be ethical. So whenever we get a charge packet, and we call that a charge packet, it's when the police officers either come in and screen a case with us or provide police reports and photographs and other pieces of evidence. The first thing we do is review that. And sometimes we review it and talk about it amongst ourselves as prosecutors. But the goal is can we prove with admissible evidence that a crime occurred beyond a reasonable doubt? If we don't have enough evidence to prove a crime has occurred beyond a reasonable doubt, but we think there could be further investigation, we contact that detective or that police agency. We send it back and we give them follow-up instructions. Go talk to this witness, please gather this, please do this. And the goal is to be able to get a prosecutable case, but also it's not only do we have to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt, we also have to disprove all reasonable theories of innocence. And that is one of the main goals we look at. So when a police officer or law enforcement makes an arrest, they make an arrest based on probable cause. And probable cause is a low standard. It's basically, is it more likely than not that this person committed a crime? So you can make an arrest on that, but actually convicting somebody, we have to have evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. So even though we can make an arrest and charge somebody on that, we have an ethical duty as prosecutors that we do not charge any case that we do not believe we can prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And if any point in the process we run into an issue that says, hey, there's a reasonable theory of innocence here that we can't overcome, then again, like I said before, when you hit the brakes, you stop, you take a step back, you reevaluate, and if that calls for dismissal, it's dismissal. If that calls for renegotiation of plea agreements or whatever, that's what we do. So it's highly important at the outset of a case to be able to evaluate the reports and the charges and the witnesses and the evidence and be able to determine, can we prove this or not?
Thank you. Okay. We'll start with you again, Adam. What specific steps can you take as district attorney to facilitate a grassroots approach that encourages collaboration between community members, city, and county law enforcement to effectively address and solve crime in our neighborhoods?
That's a great question. So historically, back before I went to Oklahoma County, I admired a program that former Sheriff of Lincoln County, Charlie Daugherty had. He had a monthly police chiefs meetings where he met at a restaurant, him and any law enforcement that wanted to come. Chiefs, assistant chiefs, detectives, you name it, they came. And we'd sit down and we would talk, we'd go through problems that we're having, we'd discuss cases, we'd discuss issues. And so whenever I came back and one of the first things I did is reach out to Tecumseh Police Chief J.R. Kidney, and I said, I want to start this program here. So now for the past 3.5 years, we have nearly every monthly meetings with all the chiefs of police here in Pottawatomie County. And in addition to that, so not just the communication with the law enforcement agencies, I've also trying to expand communication with having regular meetings with the area superintendents of schools, because I believe that proper crime prevention doesn't necessarily occur at our level. We are here to, yes, get crime, try to eliminate it from the streets, but also if we don't attack the root cause of the issue, we're never going to fix the problem. We're just going to get a new batch coming down the line. So if my goal is to be able to be in the schools more effectively, provide education, provide advice, guidance, whatever that means, mentoring, to try to eliminate the problem as it's before it gets to that point of having to come to criminal court and deal with it there.
Thank you.
In my previous role in the city council, we had a program where we connected community members with members of law enforcement to increase awareness of issues in the community. That would be something I would definitely be interested in doing here. I think when you connect the community with law enforcement, number one, you gain that collaboration, those efforts together, but the community also can learn from law enforcement what to be on the lookout for, how to be a good community partner, and how to engage with law enforcement. So that's something I've done before, I think would be very successful here. Another thing that I think we can focus on is working with our churches and community groups as well. There's a lot of people in our community that are engaged in bad conduct because they have bad friends and bad places. And so if we can get as many people out of bad places and away from their bad friends, and we can do that with churches and community groups, then we can get ahead of crime and get people on the right track.
Thank you. Okay. And Daniel, what factors should guide your recommendations on bail for nonviolent versus violent offenses?
Yeah, there's a number of factors under the law. To essentially summarize it, we're looking at, if is this person a flight risk? Is this person a danger to the community? Community connections, things of that nature. For me, it's really important to beat home the argument on, is this person a danger to the community? I understand the entire list of factors are applicable in those proceedings, but it's really important to consider and address with the court this person's safety if we put them back out on the street. And we've seen cases where people who probably shouldn't be put out and who reoffend while on bail. And that's why that's so important. We have to protect our community, and you do that by really beating home those factors. But I mean, for me, first and foremost, is this person a danger to the community? And if they are, we need to fight like heck to keep them in jail.
Thank you. Adam?
And I agree. The very first thing we look at, because the law requires us, bail to be set based on two factors. Are they a flight risk, and are they a danger to the community? Largely, and I'm sorry if I offended any judges out there, but judges tend to forget the fact that they need to consider how dangerous this person is to the community. Now, a nonviolent, low-level property crime, I can understand setting a lower bond, absolutely. But a violent crime where there's a victim out there that's probably scared for their life, absolutely. There should be a much higher bond, and we fight that all the time in the courtroom. Not only because we want to, but because Marcy's Law requires that, and that's something we take seriously. I have dealt with way too many cases in my career of people that post bond, they get out, and then they re-victimize somebody, or they reoffend, commit another crime, victimizing another person in the community. And that makes me sick to my stomach. In fact, I dealt with a death penalty case in Oklahoma County where a judge gave a guy who committed a domestic against his ex-wife, judge lowered his bond to just a really low, dumb amount. He's bonds out, and she's dead within a week. And we fought like hell in that case to keep that from happening, because we knew it was going to happen, because all of his behaviors indicated that this was what would happen. So I take that very seriously. When I look at a case, I think, is this person going to get out and hurt another person? Absolutely. Then we fight to keep them in jail.
Thank you. Adam, we'll start with you on this one. As district attorney, how would each of you define the difference between a direct benefit, an indirect benefit, an appearance of impropriety, or an actual prosecutable violation of Oklahoma law?
Say that again.
Define the difference between a direct benefit, an indirect benefit, an appearance of impropriety, or an actual prosecutable violation of an Oklahoma law.
Well, I don't know if necessarily all those are connected, really.
I don't know that they are either.
I could say that as I said before, we have an ethical duty not to file anything that we do not believe we can prove beyond a reasonable doubt. So just because law enforcement may make an arrest based on probable cause doesn't necessarily mean we can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. But what happens is we get a report in, we go over it, we do follow-up questions if we can. Is there probable cause there? Almost every time, absolutely. But based on the facts and evidence we have, we comb through all the statutes, criminal statutes, and we try to think, okay, what crime is there present within this set of facts that we can prove beyond a reasonable doubt? And if we don't find one, then there's no charge that comes. And that's it. There's not a lesser crime you can charge somebody with just because you have less evidence. It's all about how much evidence do you have, and is that evidence admissible, and does that evidence prove beyond a reasonable doubt a crime has occurred?
Okay, thank you.
Well, I presume the question is probably focused on the constitutional conflict of interest provisions, as I think what that is probably going to. So, which is mirrored in the statute. Essentially, I think the question is trying to target if you have a direct interest, if you're on a city council or you're on a county commission, you have a direct interest in a contract, that's illegal. You should not be engaging in that type of conduct. I think that's probably where they're going with that. There are times where you have an indirect interest. Maybe you funnel money through another person back to the elected official. Also not okay. And there's different definitions. We won't bore everyone with the definitions. But I think the idea at its core is, are you getting a benefit from being a public official? And you shouldn't get a benefit from being a public official. And if you're defrauding the taxpayers, I'm going to put you in jail.
Okay, thank you. Gentlemen, you'll probably be happy to hear we're at our last two questions for the evenings, and then you can do your closing statements. So Daniel, we'll start with you. Oklahoma voters often hear conviction rates. What metrics will you use instead to define success?
I would say Isaiah chapter 1, verse 17 says, "Do good, seek justice, correct oppression, plead for widows and orphans." I could care less about the conviction rate. If I have a case and I believe I can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, I'm going to take it, and I'm going to press that case forward. It means nothing to me about conviction rates. I've represented some victims on a Marcy's Law case before, and they really, really wanted that case to go to trial. And it didn't go to trial like they wanted it to go to. And I think there was sufficient evidence to do that. Admittedly, sometimes those cases are hard. Sometimes there are evidentiary issues. Sometimes you look at the believability of the witness and how they're going to look on the stand. My matrix is I'm going to seek justice and plead for widows and orphans. And if I have enough evidence to take it, and I think I can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, I'm going to take the case and do the best that I can to provide justice for victims.
Thank you. Adam?
District attorneys are what are referred to as ministers of justice. That means it is our job to ensure that justice is done, whether that means making sure that a defendant's constitutional rights are protected in spite of maybe what a defense attorney wants, to ensure that the rules are being followed for everyone and not just for the state but also for the defendant. We have a very sacred duty in that matter. So when people ask me about conviction rates, there hasn't been a single time in my career have I cared about a conviction rate. Because I don't care. I care about, have we done right? It's a right versus wrong thing. Have we done the right thing here? Sometimes the right thing is dismissing a case. Sometimes the right thing is putting somebody in an alternative court. Sometimes the right thing is going forward on a difficult case to trial, and because that's what that victim deserves and that's what they asked for. So it's not about conviction rates. I frankly have never even heard a single prosecutor in my career talk about, brag about a conviction rate, because I think that's something that's more from TV. I don't think true prosecutors care about that. True prosecutors care about justice, and that's it.
Okay, thank you. Last question, and we'll start with you, Adam. And this may roll into your closing statements. A big role in being the DA is managing the affairs of the office. Why are you the best person for this responsibility?
So I took over an office that was nearly $700,000 in debt. We were probably 50% or less staffed from the staff we had 4 years prior. We had thousands of unfiled cases piled on the floors. We had staff that were demoralized. We had law enforcement that were absolutely demoralized as well. And the first thing I did was bring in some experienced prosecutors and try to remotivate people, like, this is the way you do things. This is how you do it from the front lines. First day after I was sworn in, I'm in a courtroom putting cases on, putting people in prison that need to be put in prison. We've reviewed thousands and thousands of old cases that were in piles within just a couple months' time and got through them all. We've contacted numerous victims. We worked with our support staff and helped provide guidance to them. We brought in more people to try to help. I was able to repay, we were able to get that debt repaid in full within a year and a half. We've passed all state audits since then. I have focused on getting in not quantity of personnel, but quality. I'll focus on quality. I'm not going to hire somebody just because I need a warm body. I'm going to wait until I get somebody in that can do the job and do it well. And I think that's what a good leader does. I think a good leader is able to do every single thing they ask their employees to do. And I've done it all. I tell my people all the time, I will never ask you to do something I haven't done or I wouldn't do. And I mean that. I've sat at the front as a receptionist before taking phone calls from people. So I've done it all, and I think that's what the job requires, because if you don't know how to do the job, you can't lead people to be able to do the job.
Thank you. Daniel?
Yeah, absolutely. So I currently serve as the mayor in McLeod, and I think I've shown I have a track record of leadership in leading. We have assembled multiple millions of dollars in grants, more grants than probably has ever been had in our community. We put more cops on the streets. We fully outfitted our law enforcement. We did that without raising taxes. And I think leadership's at the heart of this office. One thing I'd like to specifically address in the DA's office, should I be elected, I want to really create a greater communication between the DHS side of the House and the criminal side of the House. I've seen a number of cases where maybe the DHS side is giving kids back and the criminal side trying to put people in jail or prison time, and I don't want to re-traumatize children by having a lack of coordination. So I'm going to put significant effort into organizing the office and creating that level of communication where we don't harm children, and I want to be more organized in that area. I think last I'd say I've shown through my history and my track record that I can build great teams. I'm going to assemble a great team in the DA's office, and we will administer justice effectively in the community. I have a track record of that for over a decade, of being a leader who, quite frankly, I've had to make nickels from rubbing 2 pennies together. So I've proven that I can lead, and I intend to do that in the DA's office.
Okay, thank you. And now we will go into closing statements. You'll get 2 minutes, and we'll start with you, Daniel.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you all so much for being here. Thanks to PAVE. These types of forums are so important. It's really the last great thing of our republic to be able to talk about ideas and go back and forth and talk about that. So thank you all for being here. I think I probably just close with a case that I had last week. I had a DHS case, and the caseworker called me and they said, "Hey, Daniel, I have a case with you. It's coming up on the docket next week. And I wanted to see what you thought about my case. I know that if I'm not perfect, you're going to really blow me up on the stand." And I laughed a little bit, and she's not wrong, though. I demand perfection. I demand perfection in everything that I do. I demand perfection by governmental officials, and that meant a lot to me. I don't think she necessarily meant it as a compliment, but it meant a lot to me. And so I really want to have safe communities, like I mentioned. I want to address these tough issues regardless of who you are. And I want to have perfection in everything that we do because our community is important, and I love this community, and our community deserves that perfection that I intend to provide.
Thank you. Adam.
I echo what Daniel said about, again, I appreciate everything you've done for us today to allow us to come in here and speak to you and to the audience out. I would submit that out of every single office on the ballot, not only in June, but in November, but since our race is decided in the primary in June, there is no other office on that ballot where experience matters more. 4 years ago, we saw the conclusion of what happens when you put inexperience in a DA's office. Everything you've heard from me today is gained by nearly 20 years of experience in the trenches doing this job. Nearly 20 years. This is not a business or some entity where money's involved. The stakes in this line of work are people's lives. The stakes are people's lives. That demands competence. That demands capability. That demands experience. You cannot lead people through the storm if you've never stood in the rain. It's one of my favorite sayings. You cannot lead people through the storm if you've never stood in the rain. So I've led prosecutors, I've led teams of prosecutors, I've led homicide investigations, I've led nearly everything you could think of in this line of work. There's a reason why law enforcement staunchly are behind me. They know that I'm in the arena with them. They know that I'm in the arena with them. They know that I'm fighting next to them. I'm not trying to show them up, I'm fighting with them. I'm trying to secure justice for our community. And on June 16th, I'm going to ask the voters to allow me and my staff, the best staff in the state of Oklahoma when it comes to prosecution, allow me and my staff to continue fighting for this community and for the people of District 23 as your DA. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of PAVE, we would like to sincerely thank everyone who attended tonight's forum, submitted questions, and participated respectfully and took the time to become a more informed voter. Community engagement is essential to a healthy election process, and we appreciate each of you being here tonight. We would also like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Ryan, our videographer, and for the tremendous amount of work he puts into recording, processing, live streaming, and preserving these forums for public playback and voter accessibility. His dedication behind the scenes helps make these events possible and allows even more members of our community to stay informed. Finally, thank you to both the candidates for participating tonight and to all of our volunteers who helped make this event possible. Please remember to get registered, stay informed, and make your voice heard on Election Day. This concludes the forum.